There are tens of thousands of Magic the Gathering cards, and when new sets come out and new cards come out, well, certain combinations of cards tend to be discovered, and we have some brand new powerful combos. And on this episode, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. And actually, really quick, a big shout out to Commander Spellbook, which is a fantastic resource for combos like these. So if you're looking for more information on these and other combos, including step-by-step breakdowns, make sure you check that out. Also, just a heads up, a link to all the combo cards are in the description below. So if you're interested in some of these combos, make sure you check that out as well. So with that said, let's jump into it. So the first combo I'm going to bring up involves Displacer Kitten, Teferi Time Raveler, and Sol Ring. Displacer Kitten is a 2/2 cat beast that costs 3 and a blue, and it has Avoidance. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to one target non-land permanent you control, and return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. This had combo written all over it the second that I saw it spoiled in Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. And this combo involves Teferi's -3, return up to one artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, draw a card. And the final piece of this combo is Sol Ring, which of course is an artifact that costs 1 and it taps for colorless. And if you played Commander for any time at all, you probably know what this one is because, yeah, this is the most popular card in the entire format, being a mana rock that taps for more than you put into it. The combo is actually quite simple and incredibly effective because Teferi also says each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. With this combo, let's just pretend we have everything in play already. We tap the Sol Ring for 2, and then we -3 Teferi to bounce the Sol Ring back to our hand and we draw a card. With one of the 2 mana that we made from Sol Ring, we recast Sol Ring, which is going to trigger Displacer Kitten. Again, Sol Ring is a non-creature spell, so we can exile to one target non-land permanent we control and bring it right back. So yeah, we're going to exile Teferi and bring it right back. So Teferi comes back with the 4 starting loyalty, and we can activate Teferi again. So essentially we're at the exact same place we just started at, except we drew a card and we have 1 extra mana just floating around in our mana pool. Basically, we can just keep doing this again and again and again as many times as we want, essentially until we run out of cards. And yeah, this is basically near infinite mana, essentially near infinite card draw. And of course, there are plenty of ways to win with that. I mean, if you've got a way to essentially shuffle your hand back in your library, you can just keep doing this over and over again an infinite number of times. And yeah, there are plenty of ways to win from here. And of course, that's not the only combo with this setup. Because obviously, I mean, Mana Crypt can fit that spot as well. It's just basically a better version of Sol Ring somehow, but a lot more expensive. Okay, better in some ways, obviously. It's a 0 mana artifact that says beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you, and it can tap for 2 mana. So while there is the potential pain of taking some damage, that's really not a big deal in Commander anyways, and sometimes you might not take that damage regardless. Yeah, I mean, obviously this goes infinite as well, essentially for the exact same reason that Sol Ring does. But instead of actually having to pay to cast this, again, it's a 0 mana artifact, so you can just keep casting it for free. Speaking of which, Mox Amber is somewhat similar, but can be even better in certain circumstances. It's a 0 mana legendary artifact that can tap to add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. So whereas our previous 2 mana rocks could only add colorless mana, this one can add either blue or white mana, or again, if you've got another legendary creature or planeswalker in play, whatever that has as well. Regardless, obviously, when you are digging through your deck and just drawing essentially, whatever you want to draw into, you can obviously cast more things with access to mana of either blue or white. Moving on, we've got a commander from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. That is a mouthful. Regardless, it is Abdel Adrian, Gorion's Ward. A 4/4 human warrior that has, when it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until it leaves the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exiled this way. And also choose a background, so yes, you can include the cards I'm going to be bringing up in these combos. Well, I mean, as long as you are choosing the, background on that color identity, you know what I mean. Regardless, Animate Dead is a very simple and effective combo with this commander. It is an enchantment aura that costs 1 and a black, and it's a very old wordy card, and here we go. Enchant creature card in a graveyard. When it enters the battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, loses enchant creature card in a graveyard and gains enchant creature put onto the battlefield with Animate Dead. Return enchanted creature card to the battlefield under your control and attach Animate Dead to it. When Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it, and chain creature gets -1/-0. Basically, bring something back, and as long as this is attached to that, then it stays in play. If not, it goes away. So for this combo to work, you just need Abdel Adrian in your graveyard, and then you cast Animate Dead, and then you enchant it. Abdel comes back into play, you get the ETB, and you choose to exile Animate Dead and whatever else you want to exile. For everything that you did choose to exile, you get a 1/1 soldier, and since Animate Dead is getting exiled and it's no longer attached to Abdel Adrian, you have to sacrifice him. So you sacrifice him, he hits your graveyard, and since he left play, Animate Dead is coming back into play, along with all the other things that you exiled as well, and then Animate Dead is going to enchant Abdel Adrian again. And you can do this loop as many times as you want, essentially making infinite soldier tokens, and if you've got any other ETBs from any other permanents that you're exiling with Abdel Adrian, you get those as well. So again, a very simple but very effective combo, especially with certain backgrounds. Moving on, and I'm not going to read through the entire card because it basically works the same way as Animate Dead, but yeah, Dance the Dead essentially works the same way as Animate Dead. Or, okay, at least it works the same way for this combo's purposes. And the exact same thing can be said about Necromancy, so yeah, these three cards essentially work in the exact same way for this combo, so just know that. Now, this commander, of course, can combo in other ways as well. Another combo might be with Deadeye Navigator and Phyrexian Altar. Deadeye Navigator has Soul Bond, so you can pair it to another creature, and as long as it's paired with another creature, each of those creatures has pay 1 blue, exile this creature, return to the battlefield under your control. And then Phyrexian Altar has sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. Now, technically for this combo to work, you really need, 3 other, non-land permanents in play, but sure, let's just assume that you have that. You have Abdel Adrian enter the battlefield and exile those other 3 non-land permanents you control. And when it's coming to play, you also pair it with Deadeye Navigator. Then you sacrifice 2 of those creature tokens, Phyrexian Altar, to make blue. Or I guess what blue and whatever other color you want really doesn't matter all that much. Regardless, utilizing that ability that Abdel Adrian has from Deadeye Navigator, you then blink it. So it leaves the battlefield, your other non-land permanents that you exile with it come back into play, and then Abdel Adrian comes back into play, and then you exile those 3 permanents again. So you're essentially in the exact same spot, but you're making 1 extra soldier each time. So essentially at the end of the day, that's infinite soldiers and infinite mana with the altar, and also if you've got any other creatures with ETBs, infinite ETBs, etc, etc, etc. And of course you can actually replace the Deadeye Navigator with Emil the Blessed, though you do need 1 extra non-land permanent to exile for this, because Emil the Blessed has pay 3, exile another target creature you control to return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So if you're able to make 4 soldiers each time, you're going to get an extra 1 each time, and then have infinite mana and infinite creatures, etc, etc. And actually with Emil's other ability, you can actually make those creatures further down the line infinitely large once you get this infinite combo going. And yes, technically, in Magic, you do have to pick a number, it's just not infinite, so sure, a trillion, alright? Regardless, a few other pieces that you can swap in for a somewhat similar combo is Eldrazi Displacer and Ashnod's Altar. The Displacer has pay 2 and a colorless, exile a target creature, then return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. And then Ashnod's Altar has sacrifice a creature, add colors to your mana pool. So with this combo in particular, you actually just need 2 of those soldiers each time to essentially make infinite colorless mana and have infinite soldiers. Basically, in all these, you can, mix and match for whatever works, and yeah, this commander can combo with quite a few things. One final thing that I will bring up, though, and a concept that I really like, is a Fiend Hunter tribal concept, because Abdel Adrian is a fantastic Fiend Hunter card. Fiend Hunter has, when it enters the battlefield, it may exile another target creature. When it leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to the battlefield under its owner's control. And there are other Fiend Hunter type cards like Wyrmfang Drake, which basically, when it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice it unless you exile another creature you control. And when it leaves the battlefield, you return the exiled card back into play under its owner's control. So essentially, the way that you're going to go infinite with this is by looping it. For example, if you've got Abdel Adrian in play, you play the Fiend Hunter to exile him. Then you play the Wyrmfang Drake to exile the Fiend Hunter, which brings back Abdel Adrian, which you then use to exile the Wyrmfang Drake, which then brings back the Fiend Hunter, and you see where this is going. Essentially, you can just loop this as many times as you want, and you're going to make an infinite amount of soldier creature tokens. And again, an infinite amount of whatever other ETBs you might have. So yeah, Abdel Adrian can definitely be a powerhouse as a combo commander. Moving on, how about Astral Dragon from one of the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate precons, a 4/4 dragon with flying that has, when it enters the battlefield, create 2 tokens that are copies of target non-creature permanent, except they're 3/3 dragon creatures and their other types, and they have flying. And one card this combos with is Cursed Mirror, which is an artifact that taps for a red, and it also has, as it enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until end of turn, except it has haste. So essentially this combo is very simple. You need Cursed Mirror on the battlefield, then you just get Astral Dragon into play. You create 2 tokens of Cursed Mirror, and you have those Cursed Mirror tokens enter the battlefield as copies of Astral Dragon. So then you get that ETB again, creating 2 more tokens of Cursed Mirror, which of course become more Astral Dragons, and you create 2 more tokens, and you see where this is going. Essentially at the end of the day, you've got an infinite amount of 3/3 hasty flying dragons. And actually, you can also have an infinite amount of red mana as well at the end of the day too, so enjoy that. In a somewhat similar way, there's Dance of the Many, which is a very old card, so let's read its cool text. When it enters the battlefield, create a token that's a copy of target non-token creature. When it leaves the battlefield, exile the token. When the token leaves the battlefield, sacrifice Dance of Many. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Dance of Many unless you pay blue. So with this one, the dragons are actually not hasty, but you can make an infinite amount of them, and you're probably going to lose most of them because you can't pay all those blues on your upkeep. Regardless, of course, there are plenty of ways to win from there. I mean, one obviously is, give those dragons haste in some other way, or, if you've got something like an Impact Tremors in play, there are ways to win. And finally, let's talk about Oblivion Ring, which has, when it enters the battlefield, exile another target non-land permanent. When it leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to battlefield under its owner's control. This one is somewhat strange, so here we go. Have Oblivion Ring in play, and then have Astral Dragon come into play, copying it twice. With the first token copy ZTB, you exile Astral Dragon, and then with the second token ZTB, you exile the token Oblivion Ring that exiled Astral Dragon. So then Astral Dragon comes back and you do it again, and again, and again. At the end of the day, you're still ending up with the infinite 3/3 Dragon Oblivion Rings. And of course, there are plenty of ways to win from there. Moving on, how about the combo of Dualcaster Mage and the new card Blur? Dualcaster Mage is a 2/2 with flash that has, when it enters the battlefield, copy target instant sorcery spell. You may choose targets for the copy. And then Blur says, exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, draw a card. The combo is quite simple, and yes, technically you do need to have another creature in play to start. So you cast Blur targeting that creature, but before it resolves, you cast Dualcaster Mage targeting Blur. So you create a copy of Blur, and with that copy, you target Dualcaster Mage to blink it and draw a card. That happens, Dualcaster Mage comes back into play, entering again, and you target the original copy of Blur, which is still on the stack. So you can just keep doing this again and again and again as many times as you want to, or essentially, again, as many times as you can when you're drawing all these cards. Basically, you can draw your entire deck, and of course, if you've got any other things that benefit from a creature leaving play or coming into play, again, like an Impact Tremors, you benefit from those too. And actually, there's even a commander that works essentially with this combo with Narumeha, which has, when it enters the battlefield, copy target instant sorcery spell you control, even choose targets for the copy. Basically, the only difference between this and Dualcaster Mage is that this can only copy our spells, but yeah, as long as we're the one casting Blur, we can do this combo. Alright, this one is a little confusing, but bear with me, so here we go. The first combo I'm going to bring up with Miirym involves World Gorger Dragon and essentially an outlet, maybe like a Blue Sun Zenith, and we'll talk about that part here in a bit. Regardless, the combo works like this. Miirym Sentinel Wyrm says, whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except that token isn't legendary if the dragon is legendary. So essentially, if a dragon comes into play under your control, you get a copy of it. So then there's World Gorger Dragon, which is a 7/7 Nightmare Dragon with Flying and Trample that says, when it enters the battlefield, exile all other permanents you control, and when it leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to the battlefield under their owner's control. The combo basically works like this. You have Miirym in play, you play World Gorger Dragon, and it comes into play. You have Miirym's ETB go off first so that you make a token copy of World Gorger Dragon. And you're having this occur before the original World Gorger Dragon's trigger goes off and it exiles all their permanents. So then the token copy comes in with that exact same ETB and it exiles all of the permanents you control, which includes Miirym, the World Gorger Dragon that is the original, and all the other permanents including your lands. Now, before your lands get exiled, or, your mana rocks or whatnot, make sure you tap all of them for all of your mana that you can. Regardless, back to the stack, essentially what we have now is the token version of World Gorger Dragon in play, and on the stack, we've got the original World Gorger Dragon's ETB triggering. So that then exiles the token copy of World Gorger Dragon, and then because of that, we get to bring back everything that was exiled with that token, which includes our commander and World Gorger Dragon. And of course, all of our lands and other things too. So yeah, basically we can just keep looping this again and again and again. Essentially, we have to keep looping it. But again, while we're doing this, our lands come into play untapped when they come back into play, so we just keep tapping them for mana, and we've got infinite mana, and again, that's where our outlet, like a blue Sun Zenith, comes into play. Which is an instant that has pay X blue blue blue, target player draws X card, shuffle blue Sun Zenith into its owner's library. Basically, with this, obviously, we can just draw basically our entire library if we want to, or, you know, draw a player out once we're ready to do so. Plenty of ways to win once you have infinite mana with this. And actually, you don't even need the infinite mana if you've got something that's got an ETB, like even a Sun-Scorched Desert, which has, when enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to target player. So this simple land can finish off all of your opponents, because again, you're going to be exiling it and bringing it back infinitely, so it can ping down all of your opponents. But yeah, this is definitely one I had to read through a few times on Commander Spellbook, so make sure you do so as well if you need a brush up on it. Next up, though, one that is pretty simple and straightforward is a combo with Astarion the Decadent and a card like Blood Tribute. Astarion has, at the beginning of your end step, choose 1, feed, target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn, or friends, you gain life equal to the amount of life you gain this turn. And the combo actually revolves around that first one, which is feed, and yeah, it combos with a card like Blood Tribute. It has kicker, tap and untap vampire you control, and Astarion is a vampire actually, and it says target opponent loses half their life rounded up. If Blood Tribute was kicked, you gain life equal to life lost this way. Now, kicking it is a nice additional benefit, but yeah, the main thing here is you make that opponent lose half their life rounded up, and then Astarion says at your end step, you're going to make that opponent lose life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn, so they lose half their life once, then the other half that second time, so they are gone. And of course, you get to gain a ton of life in the process. And of course, this is not the only card that combos with that trigger. So how about another lose half your life card with Revenge, which says double your life total, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. So again, basically the exact same thing, you gain a bunch of life, probably, and you get to drain an opponent for their entire life total. Or how about Peer into the Abyss? Target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life round up each time. So that player gets to draw half their library, but that's not going to matter because again, they lose half their life and then half their life again, and then they are gone. And yes, this also works with Fraying Omnipotence. It says each player loses half their life, then discards half the cards in their hand, then sacrifices half the creatures they control, round up each time. So yeah, essentially you're going to be picking one player for this. And I guess I should mention that you do need to have a second creature in place so you don't have to sacrifice Astarion. Next up, how about Quietus Spike, which says whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. So with this one, obviously you need to get through, but yeah, I mean, if you can get through, that player is going to be gone. And in a similar way, there's Scythe Claw, which is basically an equipment that does the exact same thing that is Living Weapon, so sure, if you can get your Germ through, great. But if not, equip it to something else, and yeah, get through and take a player out. And finally, there's another creature that essentially does this as well, Virtus the Veiled. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. So yeah, there's a lot of things that combo with Astarion, so if you're playing against an Astarion deck, make sure on the lookout for these. Moving on, we've got another new card from Baldur's Gate with Undermountain Adventurer. It's a 3/4 Vigilant Giant Warrior that has, when it enters the battlefield, you take the initiative, and you can tap it for green. If you completed a dungeon, add 6 green instead. Now, this combo does assume that you have completed that dungeon, so you can tap for 6 green. And of course, this comes with a card like Staff of Domination, which has pay 1, untap Staff of Domination, pay 2 and tap, you gain 1 life, pay 3 and tap, untap target creature, pay 4 and tap target creature, pay 5 and tap, draw a card. So this combo is very simple. You tap the Undermountain Adventurer for 6 mana, use 3 of it to tap the Staff to untap Undermountain Adventurer, then you pay 1 into the Staff to untap it. You're left over 2 extra green mana, and of course you can just keep doing this as many times as you want. And then with your infinite mana, you can gain infinite life, draw as many cards as you want, tap down every single creature you want, and untap other creatures as well if you want. So yeah, plenty of ways to win from there. And of course, there's other cards that Undermountain Adventurer combos with, but I'm actually going to illustrate that with another card that can combo with Staff of Domination. And that would be Vol Candlekeep Researcher, though you do need a secondary card like a Slagworm Armor to actually make this combo work. Vol is a 2/3 that has tap an amount of colors equal to Vol's toughness. This mana can't be spent to cast spells from your hand. Slagworm Armor is an equipment that's going to give a equipped creature +0/+6. So essentially equip this or, anything else that makes its toughness, greater than 4, and you are good to go with Staff of Domination. So you tap Vol for 9 colorless mana and essentially do the exact same thing. Infinite life, infinite card draw, untap every creature you want, tap every creature you want. Though again, keep in mind that you can't actually utilize Vol's mana to actually cast spells from your hand, but there are ways around that, and we'll talk about those here in a bit. Also keep in mind that you can generate infinite mana, again that you can't use for spells from your hand, but still, with something like Sword of the Parents. It has pay 3, you may tap or untap to equip creatures, so yeah, you just need 4 or more mana from this commander. And actually, Vol doesn't even need the armor or any other toughness buffs when comboing with Umbral Mantle, which has, equipped creature has pay 3, untap, this creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So its power and toughness are going to keep growing each time, so obviously you're going to keep making more and more mana each time. That being said, this commander can also combo with other things, and other things that can actually allow you to utilize your mana even for spells in your hand with something like a Prismite. So again, assuming that our Slagworm armor is attached or something else essentially, we can utilize Prismite, which has pay 2, add 1 mana of any color, to then use that mana, which will be a blue at this point, to activate something like Freed from the Real, which is an aura that has pay a blue, untap enchanted creature. So essentially with this, we can generate infinite mana of all colors, and we can even use that mana to cast spells from our hand. And essentially we can do the exact same thing with Pedman's Aura, though we actually really don't need the Slagworm armor for that. Now Pedman's Aura does a lot of things, so here we go. Pay blue, untap enchanted creature. Pay blue, enchanted creature gains flying till end turn. Pay blue, enchanted creature can't be the target of spells abilities this turn. Pay 1, enchanted creature gets +1/-1 or -1/+1 until end of turn. So essentially we just pay 1 mana in that last part for that -1/+1. Then Vol has 4 toughness, we tap for 4, and we utilize 2 of it to add 1 mana of any one color, which of course is going to be a blue, to untap Vol. We can of course do this an infinite amount of times, generating an infinite amount of colorless mana that we can utilize to just pump into that Prismite for infinite mana of all colors, which again can be used on any spells in our hand as well because it's been filtered through the Prismite. Moving on, how about Marut? And my apologies if I'm mispronouncing this name or any other names on this episode. Regardless, Marut is a 7/7 construct with trample that has, when it enters the battlefield, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, create a treasure token for each mana from a treasure spent to cast it. And then Goldspan Dragon has, when it attacks, it becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token, and treasures you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. Finally, there's Temur Sabertooth, which has pay 1 and a green. You may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So essentially, let's say that you've got 4 treasures, you can utilize all those to cast Marut, because again, Goldspan lets you use those for 2 mana apiece. So you cast Marut, and now you're going to make 8 treasure tokens, which of course again can each be tapped and sacrificed for 2 mana apiece. So you use one of those treasures to activate Temur Sabertooth to bounce Marut back to your hand. Then you sacrifice 4 more of those treasures to cast Marut again, making 8 more treasures. And yeah, you see where this is going. You've got an infinite amount of treasures, infinite ETBs, etc, etc, etc. And of course, there are plenty of ways to win from there with infinite mana and all of that. Next up, how about Jansen? Jansen? I'm not sure. Chaos Crafter. I'm just going to call it Chaos Crafter. A 3/3 no Martificer with haste that has tap, sacrifice an artifact creature, create 2 treasure tokens, tap, sacrifice a non-creature artifact, create 2 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens. And this pairs with Intruder Alarm, which has, whenever a creature comes into play, untap all creatures. Now, for this combo to work, okay, technically you do need a non-creature artifact in play, so sure, let's just say you've got a Mana Rock, tap and sacrifice that Mana Rock with Chaos Crafter. By doing so, you're going to make 2 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens, and 2 triggers from Intruder Alarm go on the stack. The first trigger is going to untap all creatures, including Chaos Crafter, so you can tap it again, this time sacrificing one of the constructs to make 2 treasure tokens. Then the second Intruder Alarm trigger goes off, untapping all creatures again, and then you tap the Chaos Crafter to sacrifice one of the treasure tokens you made to make 2 more constructs. Essentially, at the end of the day, you end up with an infinite amount of constructs and an infinite amount of treasure tokens, and yeah, like I've said before, plenty of ways to win from there. But the final combo that I want to bring up involves a common from Baldur's Gate with Silvanus' Invoker. It has pay 8, untap target land you control. It becomes an 8/8 elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn. It's still a land. So this combo is very simple. All you essentially need is 1 land that can tap for 9 or more mana, which of course is doable with something like Gaia's Cradle as long as you've got 9 creatures in play, because it has tap, add green your mana pool for each creature you control. And actually, okay, technically you would just need 8 other creatures in play, because the first time that you activate this, you'd be making Gaia's Cradle into a creature, and then it would count toward that count as well, tapping for 9 and giving you infinite green mana. And also, obviously, if you want to make all of your lands into 8/8s, you can. On top of if you've got any other land abilities that you can activate, maybe like an Arch of Araska, you can do that as well an infinite number of times. And of course, this combos with the back of Growing Lights of Itlimoc, which is Itlimoc Cradle of the Sun, which again is essentially a Gaia's Cradle that can also just tap for a green, but yeah, can tap for a green for each creature you control. So again, as long as you meet that mana requirement, you can do this an infinite number of times. And just one more land to bring up that can also do this if you got the mana for it, and actually the devotion for it in this case with Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Pay 2 tap, choose a color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So obviously in this case you need a little more mana because you actually have to pay that 2 to tap and activate it, but still, yeah, there are plenty of ways to get that much devotion to get the amount of mana that you need to do this. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.